The transport ship landed on Station Horizon 7 with a loud hiss. The doors opened and fresh air rushed inside. Stepped out with the other new cadets and looked around. The station was huge. Metal walls stretched up so high she could not see the ceiling. Lights blinked everywhere. Soldiers from different species walked past them without a second look. Was not special. At least that is what everyone thought. She was a human woman of average height with black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes watched everything but gave nothing away. Among the new cadets, she looked like the smallest and weakest of them all. The Galactic Military Academy accepted only the best soldiers from 12 allied species. Each species had something that made them dangerous. They had 4 arms and stood over 2 meters tall. Their muscles were thick like tree trunks. They had natural armor covering their bodies, hard as stone. They were thin and pale, but they could read minds and talk to each other without speaking. Every species had a gift. Every species except humans. Humans were called the baseline species. They had no claws, no armor, no special powers. They were useful for simple tasks and large numbers, but never for anything important. Most humans who joined the academy washed out within weeks. Everyone knew this. Everyone accepted it. Instructor waited for them at the end of the landing platform. He was a reptilian creature with green scales and yellow eyes. 3 long scars ran down the left side of his face. He had fought in 3 interstellar wars and survived them all. He looked at the new cadets like they were insects. "Welcome to the academy," he said. His voice was cold and rough. "Most of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you might die during training. I do not care about your feelings. I care about results. If you cannot keep up, you will be removed." His yellow eyes moved across the group and stopped on the humans. There were only 3 of them, made a small sound of disappointment and looked away. The cadets were assigned to their rooms. His roommate was a named Briss. She was covered in gray armor plates and stood a full head taller than. When she saw her human roommate, she let out a long sigh. "A human," Briss said. "Wonderful. I give you 1 week before you wash out." Set her bag on her bed and began unpacking. "Maybe," she said. "No offense," Briss continued. "It is just how things are. Your kind is not built for this. You have no natural weapons, no protection, nothing." "I understand," said. Her voice was calm and flat. Briss watched her for a moment, waiting for anger or sadness. She saw neither. The human girl simply continued unpacking as if they had been discussing the weather. The first combat assessment came 3 days later. Instructor gathered all the cadets in a large training hall. The floor was covered in soft mats. The walls were lined with weapons of every kind. Cameras watched from every corner. "Today you will show me what you can do," announced. "Each of you will fight 1 opponent. Use your natural abilities. Show me your species' strengths. I want to see what I am working with." One by one, the cadets demonstrated their powers. Grabbed a training dummy with all 4 arms and tore it apart in seconds. Charged through a wall of obstacles, her armor absorbing every impact. Fought 3 opponents at once, predicting their moves before they made them. Then it was turn. Her opponent was a young male named. He was not fully grown yet, but he still had 4 arms and twice her body weight. He looked at her with something like pity. "I will try not to hurt you too badly," said. Said nothing. She simply walked to the center of the mat and waited. The signal came. Charged forward with all 4 arms reaching for her. He was fast for his size. His muscles moved with trained precision. Any normal human would have been grabbed and thrown in less than a second. Was not a normal human. She stepped to the side at the last moment. Her foot swept out and caught his ankle. His momentum worked against him. He stumbled forward off balance. Before he could recover, his elbow came down on the back of his neck, not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to send him face first into the mat. Tried to get up, was already behind him, her arm wrapped around his throat in a perfect chokehold. She squeezed just enough to cut off his air, struggled with all four arms, but he could not reach her. His movements grew weaker. After 8 seconds, he tapped the mat in surrender. The fight had lasted 47 seconds. Released him and stood up. She was not breathing hard. Her heart rate had not increased. There was no sweat on her skin. She looked exactly the same as she had before the fight started. Instructor watched with narrow eyes. He made a note on his tablet. "Adequate," he said, and moved on to the next cadet. Briss stared at her roommate from across the room. This armored face showed no expression, but her eyes were wide. One of the other human cadets stood nearby. He was a tall man with sharp features and careful eyes. He had been watching Sci fight closely. Something about it bothered him. She had won too easily. She had moved too smoothly. And most importantly, she had ended the fight at exactly the right moment. Not too fast to draw attention. Not too slow to seem weak. Just adequate, just enough. Had grown up on a colony world where humans fought for survival every day. He knew what desperation looked like in a fight. He knew what fear looked like. Had shown neither. She had fought like someone who already knew how the battle would end before it began. 1 month passed at the academy. The training grew harder each day. Cadets woke before sunrise and trained until their bodies screamed for rest. Many quit. A few were carried away on stretchers. The weak were removed and the strong remained. She passed every test. She completed every exercise. She never stood out and she never fell behind. She was always in the middle of the group, always adequate, always just enough. The instructors barely noticed her. The other cadets forgot she existed most of the time. Only kept watching her. He trained near her whenever he could. He studied her movements during exercises. He counted her breaths during long runs. Something was wrong. Something did not add up. She never seemed tired. She never seemed stressed. Even when other cadets collapsed from exhaustion, simply continued at her steady pace. Halfway through the month, Instructor gathered everyone in the main training hall. His face looked even more serious than usual. He stood with his clawed hands behind his back and waited for silence. "You have all become comfortable," said. "You rely on your species' natural gifts, the trust their strength, the hide behind their armor, the depend on their mind links. This is weakness." The cadets exchanged confused looks. Their natural abilities were supposed to be their greatest assets. Every species trained to maximize their gifts from birth. That was the entire point of species diversity in the military. "Starting today, we begin ability-restricted combat training," continued. "No venom, no telepathy, no enhanced strength, no armor. You will fight as if you were baseline. You will fight like humans." Several cadets laughed nervously. Fight like humans. That seemed like a joke, a bad one. "This will teach you discipline," said. "It will teach you to think instead of relying on instinct. And it will show you that without your gifts, most of you are nothing." The training began immediately. It was chaos. They could not coordinate their movements without their enhanced muscle control. Arms that usually worked in perfect harmony now got in each other's way. They tripped over themselves and crashed into walls. Their confidence shattered within minutes. They were even worse. Without their armor's protection, they flinched at every incoming strike. They had spent their entire lives knowing that hits would bounce off their shells. Now each punch felt like fire. They covered their faces and curled into defensive balls. They suffered the most. Their species had evolved to fight as a connected group. They shared thoughts, strategies, and reactions in real time. Cut off from their hive sense, they stood frozen in confusion. They could not make decisions alone. They did not know how. Fought exactly the same way she always had. Her first opponent was a female who had lost all her confidence. Struck 3 times in quick succession. They went down crying. Her second opponent was a who kept tangling his own arms, swept his legs and put him in a joint lock. He surrendered in 12 seconds. Fight after fight won. She did not change her style. She did not adjust her technique. She simply fought the way she always fought, calm and precise and completely in control. Instructor watched from the side of the room. His yellow eyes narrowed slightly. He made notes on his tablet but said nothing. After training ended, followed to the water station. She filled a cup and drank slowly while he stood beside her. "You are holding back," he said quietly. Lowered her cup. "I won all my matches." "That is not what I mean." Kept his voice low so others would not hear. "I grew up on Frontier Colony 9. I watched humans fight for food, for shelter, for survival. I know what a real fight looks like. I know what desperation looks like. And you show none of it. You fight like this is a game, like you already know you are going to win." Turned to face him. Her dark eyes met his without blinking. "The instructor said no abilities in combat. I am following the rules." "That is not what I meant, and you know it." A small smile appeared on his face. It was the first real expression had seen from her in a month. It made him uncomfortable. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who held a secret too big to share. "I know exactly what you meant," she said. She walked away before he could respond. That night lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Smile. He thought about her fights. He thought about the way she moved, always efficient, always controlled, never wasting a single motion. Humans were supposed to be the weakest species in the Alliance. They had no natural weapons, no special powers, nothing except their brains and their stubbornness. That was what everyone believed. But had seen something different he had seen something that frightened him. She was not struggling to keep up with the other species. She was not pushing herself to her limits. She was not even trying. She was holding back. The question that kept awake was simple and terrifying. If this was holding back, what would she look like if she let go? He was not sure he wanted to find out. In her own room, sat on her bed in the darkness. Briss was already asleep, her armored body rising and falling with each breath. The station hummed quietly around them. Looked at her hands, they were small and soft. They looked like ordinary human hands, no claws, no armor, no visible weapons. She flexed her fingers slowly. These hands had done things that would make the other cadets run screaming. These hands had survived horrors that most species could not imagine. These hands had been built through years of suffering and training, and endless practice. The instructor said no abilities in combat. Smiled in the darkness. She had never used abilities. She did not need them. Everything she did, she had earned the hard way. The joint training exercise was supposed to be simple. New cadets would work alongside senior students in a combat simulation. The goal was teamwork and communication. Nothing dangerous, nothing real. That changed in an instant. Stood with her squad in a large chamber deep inside the station. The room was filled with obstacles and cover points. Holographic targets floated in the air, waiting to be shot. Senior cadets gave orders while the new recruits followed their lead. Then the lights turned red. A loud alarm screamed through the speakers. The holographic targets disappeared. Metal panels in the walls slid open and combat drones flew out. These were not training drones. Their weapons hummed with real energy. Their targeting systems locked onto the nearest bodies. The first drone fired. A senior cadet fell with a smoking hole in his chest. Panic exploded through the room. Cadets ran in every direction. Some tried to fight back with training weapons that did nothing against real armor. Others searched for exits but found them sealed. The drones kept coming, more and more, pouring out of the walls like angry insects. Instructor shouted orders through the communication system. All cadets evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. But there was nowhere to go. The doors were locked. The emergency systems had failed. They were trapped in a metal box with killing machines. A young cadet named pressed herself against a wall. Her pale skin had turned even with fear. Her species relied on their mental connection to stay calm during danger, but her link was blocked inside the training room. She was alone in her own head for the first time in her life. A drone turned toward her. Its weapon began to charge. Closed her eyes and waited for death. The shot never came. She opened her eyes and saw standing between her and the drone. The human woman held the drone's weapon arm in her bare hands. With a single sharp motion, she tore the arm off completely. Sparks flew everywhere. The drone tried to turn but was faster. Her fist punched through its central processor. The machine fell dead at her feet. Stared with her mouth open. "How did you?" Did not answer. She was already moving. Another drone flew toward a group of injured cadets, grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and threw it like a spear. It pierced the drone's eye sensor and sent it spinning into the wall. Before it could recover, was there. She grabbed its body and slammed it into the ground so hard it shattered. Watched from across the room. He had found cover behind a fallen obstacle. His training weapon was useless. All he could do was watch as moved through the chaos. She was not fighting like a cadet. She was not even fighting like a soldier. She was fighting like something else entirely. A machine. A force of nature. A predator that had finally stopped pretending to be prey. 3 drones attacked her at once, dropped low as their shots passed over her head. She rolled forward and came up underneath the nearest drone. Her hands found its power core and ripped it out in one motion. She used the dead drone as a shield against the second one's attack, then threw it into the third. Both machines crashed together and exploded. More drones came, kept destroying them. She moved between attacks like she knew where they would be before they happened. She struck weak points that should have been hidden. She used the drone's own momentum against them, turning their speed into their destruction. Briss had found shelter with a group of. Even with their natural armor, they were afraid. The drone's weapons could pierce their shells. They huddled together and watched the human woman fight. "That is impossible," Briss whispered. "Humans cannot move like that. Humans cannot do that." A elder shook his head slowly. "I have seen humans fight before, on the frontier in the wars." His voice was quiet and filled with something like respect. "They fight different when they have nothing to lose. They become something else. But she is just one person. She is just a baseline." "There is no such thing as a baseline human," the elder said. "Not really. That is just what we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night." The last drone fell, stood in the center of the chamber surrounded by broken machines. Oil and sparks covered the floor around her. Her uniform was torn, but her skin showed no wounds. She was not breathing hard. She looked exactly the same as she had before the attack started. The doors finally opened. Rescue teams rushed in with medical equipment and weapons. They stopped when they saw the destruction. They stared at the single human woman standing among the wreckage. Instructor pushed through the crowd. His yellow eyes swept across the scene. Broken drones, saved cadets, and calm as stone. "Cadet," he said slowly, "explain yourself." Turned to face him. Her dark eyes showed nothing. No pride, no fear, no emotion at all. "You said no abilities in combat, sir," she said. "I did not use any abilities. I just stopped the drones." Stared at her for a long moment. The other cadets watched in silence. The rescue teams did not move. "What you did here," said carefully, "is not something a normal human can do." Tilted her head slightly. "With respect, sir, you do not know what a normal human can do. You have never really seen one fight." She walked past him toward the medical teams. Behind her, 12 species of soldiers watched her go. None of them would ever look at humans the same way again. The academy launched a full investigation within hours, was taken to a medical facility in the restricted section of the station. She did not resist. She simply followed the guards with the same calm expression she always wore. For 3 days they tested her. Medical scanners examined every cell in her body. Genetic analyzers searched for modifications or mutations. Brain imaging machines mapped her neural pathways. Psychic evaluators tried to detect hidden mental abilities. Physical assessments measured her strength, speed, and reflexes. They found nothing unusual. DNA was completely normal human DNA. Her brain showed no signs of enhancement or psychic potential. Her muscles were within standard human ranges. Her reflexes were fast but not impossibly so. By every scientific measurement available to the Galactic Alliance, she was an ordinary woman. The investigators were confused. The evidence in the training chamber said one thing, the test results said another. Something did not match. On the fourth day, Commander summoned to her private office was an ancient female. Her scales had faded from bright green to pale gray over centuries of life. She had 4 arms like all her species, but 2 of them were mechanical replacements. She had lost the originals in a war that most cadets had only read about in history books. Her office was filled with trophies and memories. Flags from dead nations hung on the walls. Weapons from extinct species sat in display cases, had watched empires rise and fall. She had seen things that would break younger minds. Stood before her desk and waited. "Sit down," said. Her voice was soft but carried weight. "This is not an interrogation. I simply want to talk." Sat in the offered chair. She kept her hands folded in her lap. Activated a holographic display. Personnel file appeared in the air between them. Photos, documents, and reports floated in soft blue light. "I have read everything about you," said. "Born on Colony World 17, a farming planet on the edge of Alliance space. Your parents were agricultural workers, simple people living simple lives." Said nothing. Then the frontier wars came. His voice grew heavier. "Enemy forces invaded your world when you were 7 years old. They killed most of the adult population within the first week. Children were considered low-priority targets. They assumed the children would simply die on their own." Still remained silent. The invasion lasted 4 years before Alliance forces could retake the planet. During that time, you survived alone. A 7-year-old child in a war zone with no food, no shelter, no protection. Leaned forward. The rescue teams found you in the ruins of the capital city. You had built a shelter from destroyed buildings. You had weapons made from scrap metal. You had survived by hunting enemy patrols. "I remember," said quietly. "A child hunting trained soldiers," shook her head slowly. "The rescue report said you had killed at least 30 enemies over those 4 years, probably more. They only counted the bodies they could find." 37 said, "I counted." Silence filled the room. Turned off the holographic display. She studied with eyes that had seen too much death to be shocked by anything. "The other species evolved their advantages," said. "Were given 4 arms by nature, grew armor through generations of adaptation, developed telepathy over millions of years. These gifts were given to us. We did not earn them." She pointed one mechanical arm at. "But humans had nothing. Your species crawled out of mud with only your brains and your hands. Everything you became, you built yourselves. Every technique, every strategy, every adaptation was earned through suffering, through failure, through death." "Is there a question, Commander?" "Yes," folded all 4 arms across her chest. "When you fought those drones, when you have been fighting all along, were you using abilities?" Considered the question carefully. She thought about the wars she had survived. She thought about the years of training she had given herself. She thought about the thousands of hours of practice, the countless injuries, the endless repetition until every movement became as natural as breathing. "No, Commander," she said finally. "I was not using abilities, I was using skills. There is a difference." "Explain." "An ability is something you are born with, something given to you by nature or genetics. Skills are different. Skills must be earned. They require time and pain and sacrifice. They require you to fail again and again until you learn to succeed. Met's ancient eyes without flinching. Everything I can do, I taught myself. Every technique I used against those drones, I learned through years of fighting to stay alive. I have no gifts. I have no powers. I only have what I built with my own hands. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that truly mattered. If there were no rules, if you did not need to hold back, what could you really do? Something changed in its expression. The calm mask cracked just slightly. Underneath was something older and colder, something forged in 4 years of war and survival, something that had learned to kill before it learned to read. I would stop holding back, said simply. Nodded slowly. She had lived for centuries. She had commanded armies and won wars. She had faced enemies that could destroy planets. But in that moment, looking at the quiet human woman across her desk, Commander felt something she had not felt in a very long time. She felt afraid. You are dismissed, Cadet said. Return to your training. Stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. Commander, may I ask a question? Go ahead. Why did you really call me here? You already knew everything in my file. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to understand what humanity really is when you strip away the pretense of weakness. And what did you learn? Turned her chair to face the window. Outside, stars burned in the endless darkness of space. I learned that we have been very lucky, she said quietly, that humans decided to be our allies instead of our enemies. Left without another word. Word spread through the academy like fire. The story of the human woman who destroyed a drone swarm with her bare hands traveled from cadet to cadet, from instructor to instructor, from station to station. Some believed it. Most did not. They called it exaggeration. They called it propaganda. They called it impossible. The Galactic Council demanded proof. A delegation of senior officers arrived at Station Horizon 7 within 2 weeks. They represented all 12 allied species, generals, admirals, and commanders who had won wars and shaped history. They wanted to see this remarkable human for themselves. They arranged a demonstration. The main arena of the academy was the largest training space on the station. It could hold 5,000 spectators around a central fighting floor. On the day of the demonstration, every seat was filled. Dignitaries sat in private boxes. Officers crowded the upper levels. Cadets packed into every available space. Instructor stood at the edge of the arena floor. His face showed no emotion, but his clawed hands were tight at his sides. He had trained. He had dismissed her as adequate. Now the entire Galactic Council waited to see what she could really do. 5 elite soldiers entered the arena from the opposite side. Each one represented a different species. Each one was a champion of their kind. The first was a warrior named. He stood nearly 3 meters tall. His 4 arms were covered in ritual scars from hundreds of victories. He had never lost a match in his entire career. The second was a named. Her armor was thicker than standard, grown through generations of selective breeding. She carried no weapons because her body was the weapon. The third was a called. He was connected to a network of 5 other in the audience who would feed him tactical information in real time. He could predict attacks before they happened. The fourth was a serpentine creature from the species. Her venom could paralyze an enemy with a single scratch. She moved like water and struck like lightning. The fifth was a massive, a species known for their unbreakable bones and limitless endurance. He had once fought for 3 days without rest and won. These 5 champions stood in the center of the arena. They were the best their species had to offer. They had been chosen specifically to prove that one human woman could not possibly be a threat. Then walked out. She wore a simple training uniform. No armor, no weapons. Her black hair was tied back in its usual ponytail. She looked small compared to her opponents. She looked weak. She looked like exactly what everyone expected a human to be. A voice announced the rules. The 5 champions could use any abilities they wished. Natural weapons, species advantages, coordinated tactics, everything was permitted for them. Would fight with no abilities, because she had none to use. The signal came, the fight began. Charged first. His 4 arms reached for like a cage closing around prey. He was fast for his size. His muscles moved with trained precision. He expected to crush her in seconds. Stepped inside his reach. It was such a small movement, such a simple thing, but it changed everything. Suddenly, his long arms were useless. His strength meant nothing when he could not grab his target. His palm struck his throat. Her knee hit his stomach. Her elbow crashed into his face. Fell, the greatest warrior of his generation, fell to a human woman in less than 4 seconds. Attacked next. She charged with her armored body like a living tank. Nothing could stop her. Nothing could hurt her. She would simply crush the human under her weight. Did not try to stop her. She did not try to hurt her. She simply moved at the last moment and let own momentum carry her past. As the stumbled, found the gap between her armor plates. A precise strike to the nerve cluster underneath. Collapsed, paralyzed but alive. Tried to predict movements. His network analyzed her patterns and fed him data. They calculated where she would be and what she would do. But did not follow patterns. She did not move in predictable ways. She had taught herself to fight in the chaos of war where nothing made sense and survival meant constant adaptation. Predictions were useless. His network screamed warnings, but he could not react fast enough. Was behind him before he understood what happened. A single strike to his neck and he dropped unconscious. The warrior was more careful. She circled slowly, looking for an opening. Her venom dripped from her fangs. One scratch was all she needed. She never got it. Moved like smoke. Every attack missed by centimeters. Every strike hit empty air. The grew frustrated. She attacked faster and faster. She made mistakes. Caught her extended arm, twisted, and threw her across the arena. The serpentine warrior hit the wall and did not get up. Only the remained. He had watched his teammates fall. He had seen things he could not explain, but did not feel fear. They did not give up. They simply kept fighting until they won or died. He attacked with everything he had. Fists like hammers. A body that could not be broken. Endless stamina that would outlast any opponent. Let him hit her. The crowd gasped. The fist connected with her shoulder. It should have shattered bones. It should have ended the fight. Rolled with the impact. She absorbed the force and redirected it. She came up inside his guard and began striking. Not hard, not fast, just precise. She hit pressure points and nerve clusters. She attacked joints and weak spots. Each strike was small, but each one added up. The slowed. His unbreakable body was not broken, but it was failing him anyway. His muscles stopped responding. His balance disappeared. After 30 seconds of precise strikes, the greatest warrior collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Stood alone in the center of the arena. 5 champions of 5 species lay defeated around her. The greatest warriors the Alliance could offer had fallen to a single human woman with no special abilities. The arena was silent. 5,000 spectators sat in stunned disbelief. Instructor stepped forward. His voice echoed through the quiet space. "Cadet," he said slowly, "what exactly was that?" Looked up at the crowd. She looked at the generals and admirals. She looked at the representatives of 12 species who had dismissed humans as baseline, as weak, as nothing special. "That," she said simply, "was me holding back." She walked out of the arena without another word. Behind her, the silence continued. No one knew what to say. No one knew what they had just witnessed. They had wanted proof that humans were nothing special. Instead, they had learned a terrifying truth. Humans were not weak because they lacked abilities. Humans were strong because they had learned to survive without them. They had built themselves from nothing. They had turned weakness into strength and suffering into skill. And if this was just one human holding back, what would happen if all of humanity decided to let go? No one wanted to find out. Years later, when history books were written about that day, scholars would call it the moment everything changed. The moment the galaxy learned to respect humanity. The moment fear replaced pity. Instructor retired soon after. When people asked about his most memorable student, he never answered directly. But he stopped calling humans baseline. He called them something else now. Terrifying,